Hello, this is QuickSkillz, and today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks for the Super Console X2 Pro. I'm going to link the device in the description. You can find this device on Amazon or on eBay, but it's going to be cheapest found on Aliexpress. So if you want to buy the exact device that I'm using today, go to the description of the video. The only downside of going this route is it will take some time to get to you. Delivery time from China can be up to a month, so make sure if you're ordering this as a gift, order it a month in advance. I did receive my device within 2 weeks, which still seems like a long time when we're used to Amazon 3-day delivery, Amazon same-day delivery. You're not going to get that with the Super Console X2 Pro. You will need to order it at least a month in advance and expect at least 2 weeks before it hits your door. Now I have the device powered off. I want to turn it on and show you the load up screen so that way you know that you have the same Super Console X2 Pro. Now, I won't know if they make any changes to this device, so if yours is a little bit different of a load up screen than mine, it's probably still the same, but I just want to show you what mine looks like when we boot it up. And there is some music that plays, so I'm going to turn that on right now. There is a button in the back of the device that I push to turn it on. You may have to plug in your device and press that button for it to load up. And so here we see the console is now loading up. Alright, so that's the music there. It's quite loud if you ask me. So you'll see this KinHank Games Retro loading screen. This is running off of Emuelec. Emuelec is a free Android-powered emulator that's going to house all of your emulators and all of your ROMs into an easy-to-use loading screen. Now, this screen that is shown here is the one that came default, but it actually happens to be my favorite because of the way it shows the console. The information is easy to take in, and you can easily see all the consoles here that I can select. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is plug in your USB controller. So I have a USB controller that is similar to an Xbox 360 controller. It has 2 joysticks, 2 triggers, the bumper buttons, and then the 4 buttons up on top, and a D-pad attached to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug it in right now. And once you have done that, even though you haven't configured your controller, you will be able to push the start button just like that. And you're going to want to use the D-pad to go down to controller and Bluetooth settings. So even though you haven't done this, it will know enough about it to access these menus here. It's not going to work as well if you just go right into a game without doing this. And so we're going to go to PS1 controller, and we are going to select this one. Oh, sorry. We're going to go to controller mapping. And so when you select this one here, it's going to say you are going to map a controller map based on the button's position relative to its equivalent on the SNES controller, not its physical label. If you do not have a special key for a hotkey, use the select button. Skip all button sticks you do not have by holding any key. Press the south button to confirm when done. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It says 1 gamepad detected. Hold A button on your device to configure it. So I'm just going to do that. Hold the button down. And so now it says D-pad up, press anything. And so what it means by that is you actually want to press the D-pad up. Now I can push the B button, and the B button will then be D-pad up for the rest of what I'm doing, and that will make things very difficult. So make sure when you're here, don't just push anything all randomly. Make sure you hit D-pad up, D-pad down, D-pad left, D-pad right. Then you're going to press the start button, usually the right button on your controller, and then select is going to be your left button. And then you're going to press button A. That's going to be the east button. South button is going to be B. And keep in mind that your controller might be labeled differently. So what they mean by south is the lowest button of the 4 buttons on your controller. For instance, a PS controller, that might be the X button, but it doesn't matter because it's the lowest button. This one's the highest most button. This one's the leftmost button or west button. Left shoulder is going to be your left bumper. Right shoulder is going to be your right bumper. Left trigger and right trigger. Oh, and so that one, it actually skipped on me. So now I made a mistake. That's okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and skip down everything here. And I'm actually glad this happened because I can show you fairly easily how to save everything if you make a mistake. So made a mistake here. Now we're going to just do it again. So I made a mistake. Now we're just going to go back again. So we're going to up, down, left, right, start, select, do. And I don't know why that skipped, but we're going to come back to it. These can be a little tricky. So now that we have done that, over here it has not defined. We're going to select it, and now I have it defined. I don't know why I kept skipping there, but you can go through and skip all the buttons, or when you're done selecting everything, you can then go back up and make any changes if you made any mistakes. And so now we have our controller configured. That is going to be the first thing you do when you get your Super Console X2 Pro. The next thing I recommend doing is going over to network settings and connect to your Wi-Fi. I have my IP address blocked off here, but you can see it says connected. We have the host name, Emuelec. If you do connect to your Wi-Fi, you can connect to your device and access the files on the network. If you're not familiar how to do that, then you can remove the SD card, the micro SD card, and connect it to your device directly to have access to your files. If you're not sure how to do that, or you're not very techy, I do recommend not messing with the files that came with your device. But if you do decide to access the files in your device, you can go over to sound settings, and you can have music playing over the background when you're going through the menu. And so right now I'm going to show you what I have playing. Right now I have Luigi's Mansion playing. I'm going to see if I can find something that's not licensed. We're going to hear some background music as I go through the songs here. And as I mentioned, I do have songs that are licensed, so I'm not going to keep this music playing loudly. But you can see here, if you go into your files, you're going to find a file called BGM, background music. You can load in any MP3 that you'd like. So I have about 1,000 songs loaded into my Super Console, and it has music from all video games that just play in the background as I'm playing. Now the music will stop when you load a game up, and it will have music in there that is it's just going to play the sound from the device you're supposed to be playing. So that is tip number 2. So tip number 1 was controlling your accessing your controller. Tip number 2 is connecting to your network settings. Very easy. I mean, you're just going to connect here. Now, what's great about connecting to your network settings is once you have done that, you're going to see here that I have videos playing when I am no longer using my device. So I actually have one of those arcade cabinets that you get from Walmart, and I modified it to run the Super Console. So I can run just about every game here. It is pretty difficult to do. It took me a lot of trial and error, but I got it exactly the way I want it now. But what I'll do is I'll just power it on and then just have the screensaver playing on my device. And while I'm playing my device, it's playing all those songs that I have. So those 1,000 songs that I have in my background music, they're just going to be playing in this video, and I'll have a little link up here for you. It's going to show you I recorded 30 minutes of just background music. So it just has random games playing in the background and then the music playing. So I kind of like having that for ambiance. You know, if I'm working in my office and I just want to have some background music going on, I'll turn on my arcade. And I always like to have distractions around. So I'll look over and see what game is playing, because this will automatically change. You can see that Cadillac and Dinosaurs automatically loaded up, and it might play the video multiple times in a row, but it will randomize the videos in your collection. And so like here you can see The Simpsons, and I'm using the right on the D-pad to just skip to the next one. But if you were not in front of the device, it would just automatically skip to the next one. So it'll just keep looping like that until you run out of videos to run. And so the reason why I'm showing you this is you may be wanting to add videos to your device as well. And so once you're connected to the internet, and you'll see that because on the top right hand corner we have the Wi-Fi symbol connected, what you're going to do is you're going to hold the A button on any song or any game that you wanted to access. And if we look at the bottom row of our screen, you'll see there's some commands. There's options, menu, Y, search, random, hold, save states, favorite, launch game, game options, and it says hold. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the A button to access game options. So these are the game options. You can view game media. So all we have is a picture here. Save states, if you're playing this game and you saved it in the game, then you're going to be able to access them here without having to load directly into the game. You can just load the save state here. And then one of my favorite things to do is scrape. So what that's going to do is it's going to scrape all the little metadata on the game. It's going to search the internet for it. And if it finds a video, you can download that video and it'll automatically add it to your device. And that video will then be in your rotation of videos that it's going to play. Now, there is a way that you can scrape all the games on the device, but I do not recommend you do this because it will take up space on your device, and your device is going to come loaded with a lot. It's pretty much full. And so you're not going to have a lot of room for videos. So do not scrape all. Also, some of these sites where it scrapes the data from, it's not going to let you just take all their data. It wants you to sign in if you're going to be using it to download all 100,000 games that are on this. And so just keep in mind that if you scrape all, you're not going to get the results you want. I recommend just going to the games that you want to see play. And you see how it has that little camera? It looks like where it says special edition, there's a little shape of a camera. If I select that one, it's going to download the video. And it's coming from Screen Scraper. The one below is coming from the Games DB. You could just go directly to those websites and download them, but the way this is configured, you can do it internally from this device without having to remove the SD card, without having to do anything special. It'll load that video directly into your game. And what's nice about doing the videos is that you can then access the video as you're hovering through the game. So you see now the Earthworm Jim video is playing versus being a static image. And I like having that. And what I do is I will make this a favorite game of mine. And so if you look at the bottom, I need to press X where it says save states. But if I hold it down, it'll make it a favorite. So let's do that. So I usually, anything that I have a video on, I will, and I actually pushed the wrong button. I actually did Y and I did random. So let's do X and we're gonna do favorite. And so now you see the star next to it. It is now a favorite. If you do not want to do that, but you want to make something a favorite, you hold the button down. You can also go add to favorites that way, and it'll give it a star. So let's go ahead and add the Batman video to our collection. And some of them load up quickly. Earthworm Jim took a while, but Batman instantly found the video. So now we have Batman Returns and Earthworm Jim in the Sega CD automatically played. Now, as you go through these games, please understand that each console has its own emulator. So here we are, we're going to load up Mortal Kombat. And it is going to use an emulator, so it tells you right there which emulator that you're using. And the game is just going to load up. And what I wanted to show you is for tip number 3, I guess. I'm not really keeping track, but tip number 1 was the controller. Tip number 2 was connecting to Wi-Fi. Tip number 3 actually was downloading videos to your console. So tip number 4 is going to be how to save in the game. So what's really cool about this is that if you find yourself in a game that you can save your progress, then it'll automatically save it for you. You do not have to do anything special. So if there is a save state in the game, you can let it do it that way. Now, I'm just loading this game up so that you can see it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do hot command. So my hot command is a dedicated button, but your hot command might be select as it recommended in the video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it's the Y button on my controller, but the console thinks it's the X button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold, and I'm just waiting for something different to happen on the screen so that we know that this is working. Oh, I had to push start. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push I'm going to hold the hotkey button down, and while holding it, I'm going to hold the X button. So when you have this on here, this is going to be the quickest way to save. So let's save. So right now it's a state slot. We can change this number to anything. It's going to come default at 0, but the purpose of that is if you want to save it. Now when we do the hot command, we can go to load state. And so now it's loading from load slot 1. However, let's say I want to continue down this path and save again, but not overwrite the first save that I did. So what we do is we'll change this to 1, and now we're going to save the state. And you can keep doing this indefinitely as long as there's so let's load here, but we want to load from 0. So here we go, we're back in time. But if we want to just skip ahead, we can load from 1. So that is loading from 1. See, we're back to here again, loading from 1, or we can load from 0. Can't let Sonya beat me. So a lot of these old school games, it is cool to be able to just have a quick save state, and you can load. Let's go ahead and do save state 2. So now when we play, we can just load here from save state 2. There we go. And so now when we want to exit the game, you're going to hold the hot command button down. So that might be select on your controller. For me, I have a dedicated button on my controller for hot command. And we're going to hold the start button. When you do that, it says press again to quit. If you take a long time to do it again, it will reset. So let's do it. And then we're going to press it again. You don't have to do it really fast, but you do have to do it consecutively. And so that is Mortal Kombat there. Go ahead and scrape that one since we're at it. I just like having videos playing in the background, and I actually went into some of the higher gigabyte games like the PSP and I deleted them because they take up a lot of space, and I know I'm not going to play PSP games on this device. They work. I'll show you one that works. But so that is tip number 4, how to do save state. Oh, but one thing I wanted to show you now in action is once you have a save state, let's say every day you want to play Mortal Kombat and you just want to make sure that your game is loaded, hold the A button, which might be the B button on your controller, but hold the A button. And when you go to save states, you can see each of the save states that I created just now. You can delete the save state or you can launch it directly from there. And the nice thing about that is if you do it the way I'm showing you, you'll be able to access your device any which way you want. And so here we go, we're loaded from here and it just starts. So even though everything's loading, the game's already in action. We can just exit now. But let's go on with what the tip that I was saying is that you can load up your games directly through the menu. And there is a hot command that lets you quick save without having to pull up that menu. I don't like doing that method because sometimes you might want to save and sometimes you might want to load. And if you save when you mean to load, you will overwrite your file. So I like to load into the game that I want to play. That way I make sure I don't overwrite my file, and then I manually select the game that I want to play. So it is a little bit more tedious, but you're less likely to overwrite your file because that will, if you have 4 hours into a game, 10 hours into a game, and you overwrite it, there's no going back. So use the method that I showed you here to save your games and you'll be in good shape. And so I'm just kind of toggling through games here. The next thing I wanted to show you, how to toggle your emulators. So when you go to some of these older games like Super Nintendo, NES, those are going to work pretty good. But when you go to Nintendo 64, that one usually gives me a lot of trouble. And some games have to use certain emulators, some will not work at all. So keep that in mind. Let's say we want to play Banjo-Kazooie. So when we load it up, we might get a red error screen. And I have not tested this out. Let's see if we get a red error screen. We look right at the middle of the screen. It says we're using Parallel N64. And so there we see the game is running off of Parallel. But I may want to try a different emulator on this device. Now, I do not recommend using the best emulator. You might find that this game just doesn't look good on the Super Console. And that's to be expected. And yeah, the game's not working very well. Graphically, it's just not accurate to how the game typically looks. But if we go back here and we hold A, we can go to Advanced Game Options. Now this will give me some options here and how to toggle through them. If we go to Emulator, you can see here there are some different options. So we were in Parallel N64 32-bit. Mupin 64 Plus uses the most the most graphical intensive version of this game, and I do not anticipate this to work. Unfortunately, one of the limitations of the Super Console X2 Pro is the chip is not, and you can see here the N looks different right off the bat. It was more pixelated. It is not that powerful that it can run this emulator very well. Now, so far it looks good, and I'm actually quite surprised here. I'm over here warning you not to use this one, and it seems to be working just fine. Let's see. Okay, that still looks funny. You can see here you are able to switch up your emulator. It is going to be on auto if you do not mess with the emulator settings. And so right now it looks like I'm playing Banjo-Kazooie. And if you do play any N64 games on this device, keep in mind that when you have your default controller set up, the right analog stick is going to be the C buttons. The X and the A button, or the west and the south button, are going to be your B and your A. Z is going to be your left trigger. The bumpers are going to be exactly where they should be. But the N64 controller is very difficult on how to use it. You have to visualize where the controller buttons are going to be. So we're going to exit out of this. That actually worked really well. I'm surprised at how well that worked. Let me go over to one that will typically give issues. do WWF Superstars. Let's see if this one has any issues loading up. These are just loading up. Okay, so this is the screen I was looking for. And if you get the red screen of death, do not worry, you did not break your system. You're just going to exit it like you exit any other game by pressing your hot command button and start, and then it doesn't even make you push it twice. And so that was the game that was giving us issue. So let's hold the A button on it. We're going to go to Advanced Game Options, and we're going to just select Advanced Main, and we're just going to go straight down the list. So we're going to start with Advanced Main. See if that one loads up. And if you look in the middle of the screen where it says fourth argument, it's saying it's trying to load Advanced Main. You can see where Auto failed to load it, and maybe skip down to there. But we're going to go back to this. Now we're going to do Main 2010. We're just going to go down the list. And this is tedious. This is one of my complaints, but this has nothing to do with the Super Console X2 Pro. This is a thing you're going to encounter with Emuelec. Unfortunately, the auto will not detect the best emulator for each game, and you're just going to have to manually go through one by one. And unfortunately, there are instances where Emuelec is not going to run the game. And here you can see I've encountered one that is running the game, and so now we're just going to give it a go. Gotta be Hulk Hogan, right? Make sure that the game's working. And so when we hold A now and go to Advanced Game Options, this game has automatically gonna remember the ROM or the emulator that I used to play this game. So that is the next tip, and I already lost count of how many tips I've given you. The next tip I want to show you is how to change the aspect ratio. So, and here's one I'll show you. We're going to change the aspect ratio. We're going to choose it to auto. So when we go to auto, it's going to have the screen really wide. This one is where I encountered this issue, and this is how I know how to fix it. So you see the game's loaded up, but it looks squished. This is not how I remember Pac-Man. So what we want to do now is we want to exit this. And just like you selected your emulator, you're going to want to select aspect ratio under Advanced Game Options. Instead of going to emulator, we're going to go to Game Aspect Ratio. And if you're not sure what aspect ratio any game runs at, just Google it. What aspect ratio was Miss Pac-Man? When I did that, it said 4:3. Oh. So we're going to do 4:3. We're going to load it up, and we're going to see how it looks now. So right now we've gone through quite a few of the things that I had to learn the hard way. So here you can see we're in Pac-Man, and this is the aspect ratio that Pac-Man's supposed to be in. It's working just fine. We're going to exit out here. And so a lot of these things I just found out trial and error. Just use this device quite a bit. The next thing I want to show you is from the main menu here, you're going to see that the selections change a little bit. So when we hit start, we're going to go over to UI settings. Now the game is going to come set with different settings. So if we go to crystal, now it's going to reload, and now this is how everything looks. However, if you are connected to the internet, go to updates and downloads, and you're going to go to themes. So when you load this up, if you're connected to the internet, you can go down and download any of the themes that are pre-made for this device. And so if you just want to change up the way your device looks, come in here to themes downloader, and these are the ones that came already set up for your device. So just depending on what you're going for. I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to it. but I think I've used this one before. I like this one as well. And to me, it's not how the console selection screen looks. I kind of like how like these look, where it has a big video in the middle. What I look when I pick a theme is how does it look like when I'm going through the game selection. So you can see I downloaded those themes. So we're going to go to UI settings, and now you can see I have a new selection. We have Emuelec Master. So let's see how that looks. So I'm not against this type of screen here, but when you select a console, I'm not a fan of seeing each game individually like this. Like, I like to see just a line of all the games that are coming up, and especially for this reason, you see how this game came up multiple times. Like I kind of find that annoying, and I want to know the title of it that I'm scrolling to. And so I'm not a fan of this theme here. Although I do like this home screen, I'm not a fan of that theme. The next thing, oh, and we're on Crystal. That looked familiar. So yeah, we were at Crystal. Let's go to this one here. So I do like, again, the way the home screen looks on here. But yeah, so this one could work for me. So I like seeing the games on the left, like a whole list of games with the title, and then having the video on the right. So I do like this type. So I'm not against this one here. This one could work for me. And in fact, I think this was one that I used to have. Go to UI settings. We're going to switch over to this one now. And I don't mind this one either. So this one's fine, but when we go to game selection, this one could work. One thing I was going to say is that when you play a game, I like to have the voids on the left and the right of the screen, because if I'm playing the game for a long time, I don't want the left and the right of the screen to burn into my screen. And so those are called bezels, and they aesthetically, I like them. But if I'm playing the game for a long time, I don't want that to have any kind of screen burn in. So let's hold this down. Advanced game options. So if you see bezel, I'm going to turn this on. So you can see here it has like this TV on the left and the right. And the reason why I don't have this by default is the device that this is connected to is already a aspect ratio that's like the size of a TV. So there's no advantage of me having it. If you have a widescreen TV and you want to fill that void in on the left and the right, then having the bezel turned on will fill that. I just prefer having black, but I understand that some people might like having the images on the left and the right. So we're going to exit here. And I believe even if you turn off RA bezel, by default, it might be enabled. So let's go here. We're going to go to game settings. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn it off. And then even if we load this game up right now, it could still have the bezel. So we're going to do no bezel. All right, so that's pretty much all the tips that I have for you today. We learned quite a bit how to use this device. You learned how to save, how to change the emulators in case you're having trouble loading up a game, how to download a video, how to connect a controller. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to power down the device. And so this is a tip that I feel is not really explained to anybody, but it is a way to protect your device. I unplug the device from the back. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it, but there is a button that is pressed on the back of this device, the Super Console X2 Pro. I leave that pressed down all the time. And what I do is I'll go here to quit, And you can see here there's a few options. We're going to go shut down system. Really shut down? Yes, we're really going to shut it down. This is the only way that I feel like you can protect your device from bricking. Every time you use this device, if you power it down this way, you can then press the button on the back of the device. Now, there may be times where the game freezes or you're locked out of your game. Just earlier, my controller disconnected from the device. I had to power it off by pressing the button in the back. But to me, anytime you do that, you run the risk of overwriting or losing the files on that SD card. So if you do not want to lose the files on your SD card and you want to have a safe way of powering down your device, you're going to power it down by pressing the button in the back. Now, from there, I just unplugged the device from the wall. But I'm going to do it right now. I'm pressing the button on the back of the device, and now the device has been powered down. If I press the button on the back, it now is going to boot back up. So we can see now that it is starting up. And so the reason why I unplug it from the wall is because I have this in an arcade cabinet. I don't want to have to be fumbling with this device, and it's hidden underneath the device that I'm playing off of. And so to me, I don't want to have to push the button on the back. I just unplug it from the wall, and actually I just have a power strip that I can just power off the power strip, and I leave the button pressed in all the time. But if you have this set up on your TV, easily accessible, then after you have shut down your device, you can press that button to turn it off, and it'll wait for you to push the button again to power it back on. And that concludes our video today. There are a few other little things that you can do, but really they don't affect the performance of the game. They basically are just little preferences and things that you might... I'll let you discover those on your own. They're not going to affect you from playing a game. The tips that I showed you today will have an immediate impact on how you play games on this device. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a comment. If you like this device, you purchased one, give me a thumbs up or a comment. The last video I did had over 10,000 views, which means a lot of people are using this device and coming to these videos to figure out how to use it. So thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. You have a good day.